כבר בחודש הבא עלייה של כמעט 10% במחיר. גל חן כתבנו, איך זה ייראה בחשבון שנקבל?
נכון, קרן, עלייה של 9.6%. אנחנו מיד נראה את הנתון על המסך. זה קורה בעיקר בעקבות עליית מחירי הפחם העולמית. אין הרבה מה לעשות עם זה כבר בשלב הזה, איך להתמודד עם זה נכון להיום, איך זה ייראה בחשבון שלכם מחודש אוגוסט, ככה זה יתחיל להיספר. אתם תרגישו את זה חודשיים לאחר מכן שתקבלו אותו הביתה. אלה הנתונים, זה היה עד עכשיו כ-670 שקלים החשבון הממוצע לפי נתוני רשות החשמל, הוא יעלה ל-734 שקלים כרגע לפי הערכות גסות, עלייה של שוב כמעט 10% בתעריף החשמל. וצריך להבין שהחשמל מתייקר, זה משפיע על כמעט כל ענף במשק. אין מפעל, אין גוף שלא משתמש בחשמל לייצור המוצרים. בראש ובראשונה, משק המים, גם תעריף המים צפוי להתייקר בתחילת השנה הבאה בעקבות התייקרות תעריפי החשמל בכמה אחוזים בודדים. אנחנו נראה את זה מהדהד כמעט לכל ענפי המשק.
Hello, you're listening to Hugo Talks. Australia are the latest country to be claiming they are in dire straits, claiming they have an energy crisis all of a sudden. Here we see national electricity market suspended as NSW residents told to conserve power to reduce blackout risk. In the UK, in the USA, everywhere they have been priming people through the media with the possible threat of blackouts in the future. They have been doing this for quite a long time now. Let's take a look at this news clip from Australia.
Breaking news on the electricity crisis. State Treasurer Matt Keane has just fronted the cameras, urging every household across the state to reduce their energy consumption right now to avoid a blackout tonight.
Electricity crisis. Funny how this has not happened before. Decades and decades have gone by and this has never happened before, but it seems to be happening now, perfectly in time with the Great Reset. Sustainability goals that the UN want. What could the reason be for this, I wonder?
It comes just hours after the regulator suspended the energy market nationally for the very first time in a drastic move to keep the lights on.
The most powerful man in power seizes control of the market.
The most powerful man in power. The most powerful... That's a title and a half, isn't it? The most powerful man in power. Just another control freak. Many of these people, they always seem to look like nerds.
The most powerful man in power seizes control of the market.
This decision was made because it was impossible to operate the system under current conditions.
At 2 o'clock this afternoon, the Australian energy market operator suspended the market that sets the price of power on the East Coast. Tonight, in this unprecedented emergency measure, the government operator dictating how much energy private generators should provide and the price they will be paid.
That is...
I wonder what that could mean. Does it mean that the prices are going to go up? Of course it does.
The price they will be paid.
That is the best way for Australian homes and businesses to be sure that the lights will go on when they flick the switch.
But tonight, a warning for New South Wales. A number of power generators withdrawing their supply and threatening blackouts.
The Australian energy market operator has asked people to consider their electricity usage tonight between 5:30 p.m. and 8:30 p.m, where it's safe to do so.
So they are asking people to not use electricity or use as little of it as they can between 5:30 and 8:30 p.m, which is when you would be using the most, like cooking dinners, etc. Now you remember a while back in the UK there was this sudden movement that appeared out of nowhere where they were saying let's strike. Let's fight back against the energy companies by everyone switching off their electricity at the same time. You remember that? And it just so happened to appear in all of the mainstream media, all of it at the same time. They were promoting it and I called it out as a psyop, as it obviously didn't make any sense. It was what the government wanted. It was part of their agenda, same agenda as this one. I mean, why ask you to use less electricity when you can trick people into doing it voluntarily? Now in Australia, you see them asking people to lessen their energy usage at a certain time. They're asking you now, at first. It won't be later on. This is media conditioning. Media conditioning. They're conditioning you now for what they will do later on.
This really does make us a laughingstock. I mean, I can't think of any kind of first world nation that has ever really done this. It's just, it's extraordinary.
And everything will soon cost more.
Conditions remain tight in the coming days, in particular in New South Wales, where we would urge consumers to conserve energy where it is safe to do so.
The best interests of consumers will always come first, and I'm simply saying that AEMO will have the government's support in any action that they choose necessary to take.
We shouldn't be in a situation where people feel like they have to turn off their heating or not cook their dinner because of the potential lack of supply of energy.
The operator says the decision was caused by a large number of generators being out of action, which is typical for shoulder seasons but not the start of winter. Planned transmission outages, periods of low wind and solar energy output, a number of ageing coal-fired power stations suffering breakdowns, and the early onset of cold weather increasing demand.
They don't really have an excuse, do they? I don't even hear the word Ukraine as an excuse mentioned in this report. Isn't Ukraine the fallback for everything these days? That place where the war is so bad? They were reporting only a couple of days ago how Ukrainians were rushing to the beach to enjoy the sun, eat ice creams and play volleyball. Yeah, that's the place that is causing the price of food and petrol and energy and electricity to rise all across the world. No, they haven't mentioned it yet, but I have seen Ukraine mentioned in articles in relation to this. Ukraine, the lockdowns, the time of year, they'd be blaming everything.
I think what we're seeing is very challenging times.
The problem's compounded by demand peaking in the early evening when wind and solar power is least reliable and effective. Tonight, major generators are in crisis talks trying to work out what this ruling means for their businesses and their future, with one saying, "We're in uncharted waters."
Again, this is part of what I've been talking about. Now, you should know why they want those smart meters in every house. I don't know what the percentage of homeowners in Australia are that have smart meters installed. I'd imagine it's pretty high. So this is why they want those smart meters installed into every home. Because of the digital network of monitoring you 24/7 through your smartphones, through the social credit score system they want to bring in, the cashless system they are hoping to bring in, the digital prison. And when they have all of this set up, they will allocate how much energy you can use and switch you off when you go over, or they will penalize you. I mean, if you use too much, they will then charge you an insane amount for all the energy you use. That goes over their defined limit, and that's their plan, and that is their way. This is their way of conditioning people in Australia with getting used to the idea.
In what world would the private sector ever willingly come into this market without an absolute underwrite from a government? Why would anyone come here and make those investments?
Our assets are all operating, but I think a little bit deeper to that is that we've got to be able to secure the fuel supply.
What we're doing is focused on making sure that we get through tonight.
Charles is with me in the studio. Charles, what happens now?
Oh, Pete, those warnings in New South Wales specifically apply until 8:30 p.m. tonight. This is being caused largely by coal-fired power stations in Queensland not producing energy as the market operator requested. We've not been told why, but this is the first test of these new rules, and there simply is no playbook for what happens next. The market operator's decision will be reviewed daily, and energy providers may still be compensated for any losses. Ultimately, that compensation would likely result in higher costs for consumers.
So even at the end, they are telling you no matter what you do, they're still going to put up the prices. The reason this is happening and will start to happen everywhere else is we, the people, have given them too much power. We have, over the last 10-15 years, bought into their gadgets, hook, line and sinker, especially the smartphones, where we've given away too much of our information, have allowed ourselves to become too dependent upon them, become addicted to them, allowed them into our lives to spy on us. And then after people have yielded to the continued demands from organisations and governments in relation to these smartphones, such as downloading apps and linking your bank accounts, etc., etc., that's made them more and more fixed and permanent in our everyday lives. An example of that would be the two-step authorization to access online bank accounts. In Australia, for example, they were using their phones and QR codes to get into supermarkets, into stores, into venues. Still are, for all I know. If people want to take the power back, then they need to do a number of things and do them in huge numbers. The majority need to do this, and that's a tall ask. One, they just need to stop using smartphones. Get rid of it if you can. Get a dumb phone, or at least stop taking them out with you. I mean, you can still use a PC or a laptop or a tablet to access the internet. It might be a good idea to limit how much you use the internet, especially if they are going to start switching stuff off in the future. Better train yourself to be without it now. 2, stop giving money to big corporations like Amazon, like supermarkets, like Asda, Tesco, Walmart. Stop funding these entities who are working hand in hand with the government and are looking to bring in facial recognition and ways to make you more tied again to your smartphone. 3, I did a video about drag queens in schools. I said don't lose your temper over it. People didn't like it. But why are you sending your kids to these schools in the first place? You're submitting your children to the system to be programmed by the government. You can take them out. They are bringing in laws to stop people from taking their kids out of school. But if enough people join together and did take them out, there's nothing they can do. As I said last year, I would have taken my kids out of school as soon as they started ordering them to wear masks, and that was over a year ago. 4, don't get a smart meter in your home, or get it removed if you can. I know there are difficulties with this one, and it may be expensive, but it's worth it if you can do it. 5, use cash. Use cash. Use cash everywhere, all the time. Stop using cards. It's simple. If a shop won't accept cash, don't shop there anymore. You haven't got much choice online, but when you're out and about, use cash all the time. I do. I never use a card. I always use cash. I don't find it a problem. 6, grow vegetables. Try and become as self-sufficient as possible. If that's not possible, find people in your local area who are growing vegetables. Make contact so you can buy from them, or you can work with them at their allotment or field or whatever. 7, this is an important one. Stop sharing mainstream media articles. I would say don't even look at them at all. But I know it's hard not to look at them to see what they are up to. But don't share them. They are powerful because they have a massive audience. They know how to push the public's buttons. But they are toxic. They are gaming everyone. They are psychologically messing with everyone's heads with their fear stories and media conditioning. So that's my advice. Take it or leave it. I know it's not as simple to do all of what I've just mentioned, but those are the measures that, if they were taken, would put a serious spanner in their plans. Give this video a share, because these platforms, especially YouTube, are starting to really cut me down, switching off notifications and all of that jazz. If you think these videos are of value, please share them with everyone. I mean, if you want to see these videos get out and about and have some influence, they need to be shared for that to happen. It's not going to happen any other way. As always, thanks for listening.
Germany's energy crisis, caused by their support for the current thing, has prompted mass panic buying of stoves and firewood. Fearful that the country's overdependence on Russian gas will lead to energy rationing and a freezing winter, Germans have bought up pretty much the entire supply of firewood, with supply unable to meet intense demand. People are unsettled or even scared, says the Central Association for Sanitary Heating and Air Conditioning. At least some customers will probably not get their stove before the end of next winter. The waiting time in some cases is over a year, and the run on stoves and firewood has also spread throughout Europe. The price of wood pellets to heat boilers has also doubled since the start of last year. Germans were previously told by Economy Minister Robert Habeck that they should make sacrifices for the current thing by taking fewer showers. Germany's Bild newspaper even ran an article claiming that avoiding showers makes you smell better. Big doubt. The Vice President of the European Commission also previously urged people to support the current thing by not driving cars and airing their clothes instead of washing them. Government Minister Peter Hawke also told Germans they should cope with soaring energy costs by merely turning off the heating and wearing warmer sweaters. Before the current thing began, Germany imported about a third of its gas from Russia. A cost of living crisis also saw German inflation hit an all-time record high last month. But now Germans are preparing for a drastic lowering in living standards, safe in the knowledge that at the very least they'll be proudly displaying their support for the current thing. Oh, and to protect the liberal world order, which I'm sure cash-strapped Americans are also overjoyed about.
Well, what do you say to those families who say, listen, we can't afford to pay $4.85 a gallon for months, if not years. This is just not sustainable.
Well, what you heard from the president today was a clear articulation of the stakes. This is about the future of the liberal world order, and we have to stand firm.
איזה טמבלים העולם. אתם לקראת הסוף, חברים. הולכים לחסל את כולכם. תמשיכו לצפות בשקרנים ותאמינו להם. יש עוד מוצא אחד. לא להסתכל עליהם, לא להאמין להם, וכל מה שהם אומרים להגיד הפוך. וללמוד את התורה שאמרה את הכל מראש. כמו שציינו את הדברים בשאר הבירוס טבעי.